Hello, good morning. You're watching Core Finance, and this is a CEO interview. I'm Charlie Gibson. Now, as many of you will know, since the days of Lord Byron, there has been a close affiliation between the Greeks and the British, and this is a case in point. The company, in this particular instance, is Alba Mineral Resources, and the CEO, or in this case, actually the executive chairman, is George Frangeskides. George, very good morning to you.
Thank you, Charlie. That's a very nice welcome. Thank you. Greeks bearing gifts, perhaps.
Greeks, well, possibly in this case. I was thinking, of course, another famous Greek called George in this country is George Michael.
Correct.
Were you great friends with him?
I wasn't a great friend of his, no. It was a shame. I would love to have been.
Well,
no,
maybe.
I like the music.
Okay, now, on to Alba Mineral Resources. Let's talk about the share price, first of all, because it's had a fantastic run of late, up from sort of, what, 0.24p to about 0.4 and a bit, so you've got a bit more than 50% in a very short space of time.
Correct.
What's driving that?
Well, I think finally we're out in the field doing some work. So we're at Horse Hill, where we're the second largest participant in the Horse Hill Developments Consortium, and we're finally doing flow testing at Horse Hill, which is a 150-day program. So I think finally the market and investors who have been in our stock for that for some time are excited by the potential there. So that's one of the reasons.
So let's just talk about your assets. You have this interest in Horse Hill, which is, how much of an interest do you have?
Direct interest would be 11.7%.
So there's an indirect interest there, clearly, as well.
Yes, there's an indirect interest there. Well, it's a 65. It's an 18.1% interest in the operator, but it flows through to an 11.7% direct interest, effective interest in the project of 11.7%.
Okay, so let's go with 11.7% effective interest.
Yes.
Then you have heavy mineral sands in Greenland, which is a new departure for you.
It is, since late last year. Yeah.
And then you got the Clogau gold mine.
Correct.
In Wales.
Yes.
So which of those, do you have a lead asset amongst those?
Look, I think the good thing I'd say about Alba is that we've got a number of assets that are sort of, racing to the finishing line, shall we say. I mean, maybe that's a little bit premature, but the analogy I'm trying to go with is the race horses, and we're trying to see which one is the main runner. Now, I mean, I think that's a good thing for our investors. We've got, I think, a suite of strong assets. So we are developing all of them. Clearly, at some point, one or other might take the lead. But at this point in time, Horse Hill, as I say, we're in the flow testing operations, and that's a long program of up to 150 days. Time will tell how well it flows. It flowed very well in 2016, but over a short period of time. So we had about 1,688 barrels of oil equivalent per day over a very short period of time. So we want to flow it over the Portland, which is the shallower zone, for 30 to 40 days, which is what we're currently in the process of doing. Then moving down to the Kimmeridge, which is what we hope is the big pay zone, and flowing 2 layers in the Kimmeridge for 30 to 40 days each as well. So we will know, shortly whether the Portland is commercial. And then, of course, when we move into the Kimmeridge, we'll know whether that's commercial as well, and that will clearly mean a lot of things. So it'll mean whether we can move to a production license, whether we want to drill another hole, whether we want to drill a sidetrack well. These are all things that we've got planning for, which is great. So in terms of the delays, if you like, to get to this point in time, from here on in, if results are good, we should be having a fair wind behind us. So that's certainly the objective.
So of these three assets we've talked about, which do you think is the most likely to give you positive cash flow first?
Well, actually, one that we've not even spoken about, which is Brockham. So if Brockham, which is very close to Horse Hill, also in the Weald Basin, goes into production. Well, it is in production at Brockham number 2, which is a very small producer from the Portland. Brockham 4 well is the Kimmeridge producer, or hope to be Kimmeridge producer. We're just waiting. Angus Energy are just waiting on the planning approval for that, and once that kicks in, then we'll be into production testing, and we will have revenues flowing, we hope, from the Kimmeridge. So that would actually be probably the first producer by a long stretch.
So does that then, is the strategy then to use that cash flow you get from that particular asset to fund the other three, and therefore you are sort of a without dilution exploration?
Well, look, I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, we've got 5% of Brockham, so I'm not going to get carried away with how much production and how much revenues we'll get from that. Time will tell. And clearly it hasn't, planning still is awaited, so I don't want to get ahead of ourselves there. But it is the first producer. It hopefully will produce some revenues for us, which will supplement our income as a company and help our profile in terms of, as you say, not always looking to raise capital, but actually generating revenues internally, if you like. So there's that. Horse Hill, the objective of the operator is to go into production next year. So, we have a fair wind behind us at the moment. We're into testing. We do have planning for a number of different things that we could do if things go well. But then we will need a production license. So, but the objective is still 2019 production at Horse Hill. So these are, in mining and mineral and oil and gas terms, are fairly short target objectives.
They're fairly short timelines as well. You're not usually in a situation where you can look forward 12 months and say, well, there could be positive cash flow.
Exactly. And I mean, it's all result dependent. It's all, I mean, I'm always, I'm never criticised for gilding the lily, Charlie. So, these are all result dependent exercises, of course, right? But the prospectivity of the Weald Basin is great. We started at 5% of Horse Hill. We've bought in at various levels, and we're at 18%. We're only behind UCOG in terms of the Horse Hill Developments Consortium in terms of size.
Do you have to raise money to invest in the assets in order to bring them to production?
Yes, I mean, that's what we are. We're an exploration company, and other than, as I say, Brockham in the short term, hopefully, we don't have revenues. So that is
So somewhere between now and 12 months' time, assuming you go into production 12 months' time, there would be a cash call.
Inevitably,
although there were cash raising.
We have funded our share of the extended well tests at Horse Hill, so that's we fully funded our share of that budgeted expenditure. Clearly, if there's other expenditure and we decide to go drill more wells, etc., then there will be further cash calls on all of the partners. But that will only ever happen if it's a successful operation. So
but of course, we want it to be.
We want it to be successful, and we want to follow our money in that instance. So yes, of course.
So you don't want to be diluted down. So you do want to.
At this point in time, no. I think
you might have lost your. Yes, absolutely. Just clip that back on, and we'll
carry on as if nothing happened.
Yes.
Clearly we would follow our money if it's going well, which is why we've fully funded our share of this this budgeted well test.
Okay, so those, if you like, are the oil assets, and just like BHP, you have both oil and mining assets.
Yes, thank you for that.
For the analogy.
Thank you very much.
And now let's talk about the mining assets. So you've got Clogau in Wales, and you've got the Greenland mineral sands. What is the relative importance, relative weighting in your mind of those two?
Okay, well, I think that's a good question. But look, the mineral sands. Maybe let's deal with that first, right?
Yes.
We're out in the field at the moment. We're building on a very short field exploration campaign that we did last year. We got the license. We managed to get a approval to go in for the first time to our licensed Tule Black Sands up in northwest Greenland. We did a very short field campaign before the weather turned on us and we had to get out. And we found very good results, right? So we sampled a lot of the ilmenite there on the beach. It is beach. It's at surface. You can pick it up in your hands. It's pretty.
So this
pretty
is
good
a titanomagnetite, is it?
So no, it's not a titanomagnetite. It's an ilmenite, and it's a fairly clean ilmenite. So what we've discovered in the test work is that we've got in situ ilmenite about 10%, and we've got quality, the ilmenite quality, if you like, of titanium dioxide is about 45 to 47%, averaging 46.4%. So it's a pretty good and very clean, low contaminant ilmenite. There's not much else in there. Right, so ilmenite is a primary source of titanium dioxide, which is used as a whitening pigment in paints.
In the old days, you all used to go to Dulux, didn't it?
Yes.
For paints and pigments.
Correct.
And the like. So, I mean, that is a sort of Kenmare that's up on the northwest coast of Greenland. Is that what we're moving towards?
It's a pure play ilmenite project. Yes. So there is obviously a read across to our neighbours up at Northwest Greenland who've been working on their licence for 3 more years than us and have done fantastic things. And,
so that's Blue Jay.
That's Blue Jay.
Who are just down the road.
Who are just down the road and done incredible work there. They've built up a significant resource there, and as far as I can see, are pushing forward to exploitation. So. We are behind the curve on that because we only just got it late last year, but we're trying to do good work this year in the field. The target is to get an initial resource, JORC resource, and then build from there. So, look, I think we're very enthusiastic. We're very positive about Tule Black Sands. It's a big market, so the pigment market is, or the titanium dioxide market is $18 billion per annum.
Helped by all the problems that Rio Tinto are having at Richards Bay.
Well, that's one thing in the news, as you say, that production has ceased. So it's a big market, and it's a good project. So we have high hopes for that. Clogeye, we did just announce that we're moving to 90% of Clogeye. Look. Right. Clogeye is a fantastic story. It's high-grade gold. It's the UK's largest producer of gold in history, as far as I know, which, of course, is not African. It's not an African
It's not
term.
the Witwatersrand Basin,
It's not African terms, but it's 80,000 ounces. I mean, the Dolgellau gold belt, which we, as Gold Mines of Wales, which is the operator, has got most of this Dolgellau gold belt under licence.
So this is the one that produces the rings for the.
This is the one that produces Clogeye gold. Is principally what produces the. That's controversial. It's the. But you're right. It's the gold that's used in wedding bands and has been for about 100 years for the royal family. So. What was I going to say? So the Dolgellau gold belt is mainly under licence to our group, or as we will be controllers of it very soon, we hope, when we close on the deal. And the Dolgellau gold belts produce about 130,000 ounces that we know of, reported. Now, in the old days, perhaps things weren't reported that well, so it could well have been a lot higher than that.
What is it? And this is high-grade, narrow vein.
It's high-grade, narrow veined. Yeah, it's high-grade, narrow vein, but it's pockets. You know, a very, very high grade. But you have to hit the pockets. So you know what they never had.
Big nugget effect.
Yeah, what they never had was modern mining, modern exploration techniques, which is what we're employing now. And the exciting thing isn't just there's a two-pronged approach here. One is to try and reopen the mine. Which is there. It's got significant underground development, many levels, and we think lots of potential to find unworked veins. But there's an exploration ground, which is 104 square kilometres. We have identified
difficult though exploration, and JORC doesn't lend itself very easily to these sorts of deposits. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's
but what we would like to find is another Clogeye. So I mean, we've identified 300 or so occurrences of gold. So old workings and just old occurrences that we know of that have been mapped. So on our exploration licence, I mean that's huge. I mean if this I like to say, Charlie, that if this Dolgellau gold belt was in Africa, it would be under licence to about 30, 40 different operators, all raising money, all trumpeting how fantastic their piece of ground is. Well, Gold Mines of Wales has got the majority of the Dolgellau gold belt under one company, and so I think it's a fantastic opportunity, but time will tell.
You alluded to this earlier when we were talking about the Greenland assets, but you alluded to the weather and the weather closing in. Where is the weather worst, in Greenland or in North Wales? I mean, I know it's a bit touch and go. But
I'm pretty sure that in North Wales one could work pretty much year round.
Okay, but hence the point, hence the question. You know, the weather is difficult in Greenland. How does that affect you at an operational level, and how would that affect any mining operation at an operational level?
Well, I think
could you have year-round working, for example?
Well, I mean, look, I mean, I don't want to jump the gun here. We're in exploration in Toulon at the moment. So, in terms of our developing in terms of a timeline to production, I mean, it's a bit premature to start talking that way. We need to see that we've got a sizable resource, but clearly, in northwest Greenland, there is a season. There's a season for working, but we are starting to think about if we were to get to a sizable resource and we wanted to go into production, how would that work? Whether we can be stockpiling production during the good time, during the good season, for shipment throughout the year from a base outside of Greenland. These are the sorts of things that we're starting to turn our mind to. But I mean, the focus at the moment is getting a decent resource out of Toulon Black Sands and getting people interested in it because it's real. I mean, at the moment we know that we've got very good quality and we know that there's high-grade ilmenite there. We need to know that there's enough of it to make a project potentially, and then we'll do all those things that you're talking about there. Start thinking about how would we go from this stage into development.
So both Clogeye and Greenland. Next stage is a JORC resource of both of them. Is that it?
No, Clogeye. I think you're right. I think it's a narrow vein gold deposit. Look,
so you're never going to try and JORC that, or
look, I think that the unknown is that there are structures probably on the exploration ground that aren't necessarily going to be narrow veined nuggety effect gold, but I don't know that for sure. But I know there's potential for other types of geological structures, but that is outside my remit as a non-geologist,
right?
Because obviously we have brainy people who tell me how these things work. But So JORC resource probably not at Clog Eye. Although there has been an exploration target historically on the ground.
So you're just going to go in and mine it?
We want to go and mine it. I mean, what's wrong with that? I mean, it's fine to have JORC resources to raise money and all that sort of stuff, but the intention at Clog Eye is to get the mine back into production. And at the same time try and find another Clog Eye.
And is it ready, as the Canadians say? Is it shovel ready? No, so you're going to have to open it up.
We're going to have to get planning.
Dewater it.
We're going to have to get planning.
Okay,
yeah,
so
we have to get planning.
It
had planning.
That's the next
it had
step.
planning in the, up till when it was last producing in the late 90s, so it can have planning again. But I mean, we're familiar with the planning process in the UK in terms of Horse Hill. I mean, that's a planning piece, an onshore UK planning
Has the
piece.
underground infrastructure degraded much since it was closed?
Look, there's some areas that need rehabilitation, but generally it's very. I mean, the rocks are very solid and very firm and robust. So I mean, I've been in there several times, and you can walk for a long time. I mean, there's a huge amount of underground development there, so it's an impressive asset in terms of the development that's there, and it's fairly robust. But yes, there's areas of rehabilitation that will be needed.
And then it's just single guys with their legs going into mine their particular state.
Possibly. Look, it's possibly. I mean, yes, it's the approach is going to be fairly traditional, shall we say, most likely. But these are things that we're working on now in terms of likely levels of production, where the waste will go, and et cetera, backfilling, those sorts of ideas. These are the things that we're looking at the moment. So this is very much more looking at how to mine. Assuming we get planning, how do we mine this thing? So
and do you have a workforce, sir?
We've got people, yeah, we've got people. We've got mining engineers and geologists and...
Did they work on the mine beforehand, can they?
We have people who've been working on that project for many, many years, on and off, who know it very, very well, and who are involved with us currently. So yes, we've not lost any of the knowledge base and experience, and we're putting that to good effect, but we're also trying to bring in more modern methods to try and find that lovely high-grade gold.
Excellent. All right, George, thank you very much indeed. I'm afraid that's all we got time for. Ladies and gentlemen, that was George Frangeskides, the Executive Chairman of Alba Mineral Resources. George Michael had a much easier surname than you, didn't he?
He did. He changed it.
Would you consider doing the same thing? I'm just asking for a friend.
If you can give me a suggestion, Charlie, then we'll go with it.
All right, George, thank you very much.
Thank you.
As I say, that's all we got time for. As I say, Alba Mineral Resources share price is up from about 0.24 to about 0.41 just in the last few days and weeks. So, as the Americans say, you do the math. I'm afraid that's all we got time for today. But this is me, Charlie Gibson, signing off on Core Finance. And until next week, you have a very capital day.